Sending it to my wife.
There is a shortage of, if there is a shortage of packets. If you need a packet, you can access it online at rabbisilber.com. If you click on the main banner there, Tisha B'Av banner, it'll take you to a page with a link to the video as well as a link to the source sheets. You can just click open the source sheets and follow along. There'll be more copies coming as well. Give me 1 second.
Find ourselves here at another Tisha B'Av. I remember when I first came to the shul here, so someone had mentioned to me that Rabbi Price, Zichron Livracha, someone had offered to purchase the shul a set of the art scroll Kinnos that the shul should have. And Rabbi Price, Zichron Livracha, in line with a long-standing tradition, it's brought down in the Svarim that there used to be an ancient minhag that after Motzei Tisha B'Av, one would take the Kinnos booklets and one would bury them, expressing the incredible hope that when we concluded Tisha B'Av, that should be the last one. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu has his plans, and we find ourselves commemorating, reliving, feeling and going through another Tisha B'Av. So what we hope to accomplish over the next few hours together is a few things. To feel the enormity of our loss. As we spoke about last night, so many times when it comes to pain, we think that pain is about pain management, removing the pain, taking away the pain, masking the pain. But we know that in Yiddishkeit, the most powerful thing is to allow yourselves to experience the pain. Don't mask it. Don't pretend it doesn't exist. Don't try to say it's not so bad. But allowing ourselves to actually feel it. Allowing ourselves to experience the profundity of the loss makes us stronger. Makes us stronger. Sorry, thank you. I'll just speak louder. Makes us stronger. And so this morning what we're going to try to do is focus on some selected kinnos, some selected stories, and embed our kinnos experience in Shira. Because we know that when we sing, we allow ourselves to feel things that you couldn't normally feel otherwise. And so we'll learn, we'll daven, we'll sing, we'll cry, and together we'll grow closer. Because Hanosei Ba'olim Chavero carries the burden, the collective burden of Klal Yisrael together. Brings us closer, makes us love one another more, and causes us to hold each other a little bit tighter. 2 more words of introduction. I want to thank everyone who dedicated this morning's Kinnos program, to the Goodman family who dedicated the Kinnos this morning in memory of Jonathan's father, of Aryeh Leib ben Yisrael, and as a zechus for refuah shlema for Aryeh Leib ben Batya. To thank Judah and Judy Minkov for dedicating the Kinnos this morning in memory of their beloved daughter, Rachel Tova Zichron Levracha Bas Yuda Avram, whose yard site is today. Greg and Rena Tressman for dedicating the Kinnos in memory of their parents, Yitzchak ben Avram, Mordechai ben Yehuda, Doariva Bas Herschel, and Devara Bas Avram Aaron. Thank the Ehrenfeld Mishpacha for dedicating the Kinnos this morning in memory of Yona's grandfather, Joseph Ehrenfeld Yosef ben Shmuel Zichron Levracha. We hope that in the merit of the tears that will be shed and the actos that will be engendered, those who require a refuah will be granted one, and the neshamas will have an aliyah, and the family in Nechama. Also, just a very special thank you to Maishi Abramson, who always works so hard to make sure that the sound system is working, the video is working, the PDFs are up, gives up so much of his own personal moments of aliyah for the collective aliyah. So Maishi, on behalf of everyone here, we thank you very much. In preparing for the Tisha B'Av Kinnos, I feel that on one hand it's a zchus, but on one hand it's an incredible and overwhelming burden. It's a zchus because in the days and weeks leading up to Tisha B'Av, I have the opportunity to learn so much, to see so much about the greatness of our people. But on the flip side, by the time I come to Tisha B'Av, I feel like my heart is ready to explode. So much pain. So much loss. Hearts shattered into millions of pieces that in reality can never be mended by anything in this world, can only be mended by the Rofeh L'Shvurei Lev. There is only one thing in this world, in this universe, which can mend a broken heart, and that's the Ribono Shel Olam. And on this day, part of what exacerbates and amplifies our pain is sometimes a feeling of Hester Panim. Sometimes a feeling that it's only HaKadosh Baruch Hu who could mend our broken hearts, but at the same time, I read the stories, I learn the Maisim, and I want to cry out, Keli, Keli, Lama Azavtani. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we know that you're with us every step, and we know that our pain is your pain. But yet we come to a day like Tisha B'Av and we feel so forsaken, we feel so alone. Because no matter how much we try to make sense of the things that have become part of our collective history, we find ourselves speechless. And so all we could do is say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you are the Dayan HaEmes. You are the truthful judge. And we know that everything you do is correct, is just. Hatzur tamim pa'alo, ki kol derachav emes, kol mishpatav emes. Everything you do is perfect. But even though it's perfect, it doesn't mean that we have any ability to understand or comprehend. And so we tried this morning to comprehend a little bit of the incomprehensible, to feel a little bit of the pain of Am Yisrael. But we go through this morning with the hope that maybe by the time we dry our tears, you know, when you cry, your tears obscure your vision. You can't see the world for what it is. You can't see people for who they are. You can't see your circumstances for what they really are. But then something amazing happens. You take your eyes, you take your hands, and you dry your tears, and suddenly your vision is restored. So let us hope that by the time we conclude our Kinnos this morning, by the time we finish singing Eli Tzion, we stand up and we dust ourselves off, that we will dry our tears, and maybe, just maybe, Eliyahu Hanavi will be standing before us. And he will tell us, my children, you have cried on your last Tisha B'Av. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has been counting your tears for thousands of years. It's time to dry them. It's time to rejoice. It's time to celebrate. For Geula has come. And if it doesn't happen by the time we finish Kinnos today, maybe it'll happen by tonight, or maybe by tomorrow, maybe by the next day. We're a patient people. We've waited for 2,000 years and we'll wait for as long as it takes. But while I wait patiently, in source number 1, a little bit of a different way of beginning the Kinnos than I have in past years. Tisha B'Av roots itself primarily in the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. It's those catastrophic events that laid the groundwork for the catastrophic events that occurred after it. And a lot of times we think to ourselves, I understand I'm missing a Beis Hamikdash, but what does that mean? Of course, it's beautiful to have, you could imagine the beauty and the grandeur of the Beis Hamikdash. We see the pictures and our breath is taken away. Imagine what it's like to stand before that beautiful structure. Imagine what it's like to see the hustle of the Kohanim, to hear the beautiful melodic shir of the Leviim, to see families coming together for Yom Tov, for Karbanos, to see everyone having their entire Jewish life centered around this magnificent epicenter, the nerve center, the spiritual center of Klal Yisrael. But often we think to ourselves, okay, we don't have a Beis Hamikdash, but Baruch Hashem, we have shuls, we have Batei Medrash, and it's true. In the absence of the Beis Hamikdash, we are very privileged to have places like our Kehillah, like many of the other beautiful Kehillos in our community, And throughout the world, Am Yisrael is strong, and part of our strength is rooted in our ability to rebuild ourselves in the aftermath of catastrophic failure, catastrophic destruction. And so we have our mini Batei Mikdash, but we forget that sometimes the Beis HaMikdash served a dramatically different purpose. The Beis HaMikdash was not simply the central synagogue to which all Jews belonged. It wasn't simply the central shul to which everyone went to daven. There was something much more profound, as the Navi Yeshayahu says in number 1 on your source sheet on page 1. V'havi osim al har kodshe v'simachtim beveis tefilasi olosehem v'zivchehem l'ratzon al mizbechi ki beisi beis tefila yikarei l'chol ha'amin. The Navi Yeshayahu says something absolutely amazing. He says, I will bring you back to your holy mountain. You will rejoice in the house of your prayer. You will bring your karbanos. Ki beisi, because my house is a house of prayer for all nations. And this pasuk, this concept goes back to the original building of the Beis HaMikdash. In number 2 in Malachim Aleph, the Navi says, V'gam el hanachri asher lo me'amcha Yisrael hu uba me'eretz rechoka leman shemecha. Shlomo HaMelech says, when the Beis HaMikdash is consecrated into the stranger who is not of your people Israel, but will come from a far country for the sake of your name. My dear friends, the Beis HaMikdash was not just for us. The Beis HaMikdash was for all of humanity. And when the Beis HaMikdash stood, there was a sense of equilibrium for the entire world. We often think of the Beis HaMikdash as a Jewish place of worship. We think of the Beis HaMikdash as something for Am Yisrael, and that no one else feels its loss, no one else feels the void, no one else feels the emptiness except for us. But it's not true. The Beis HaMikdash served as the spiritual epicenter of the world for all the nations of the world. It benefited everyone. Klal Yisrael, we had constant contact with it. For us, it became the epicenter of our daily spiritual lives. We daven in the direction of the Beis HaMikdash, and we still do every single day. But even for the nations of the world who perhaps were unaware of the significance of the Beis HaMikdash, it was still the fundamental epicenter of human life. When there was a Beis HaMikdash in this world, there was harmony. When there was a Beis HaMikdash in this world, there was shalom. When there was a Beis HaMikdash in this world, the Ribono Shel Olam had a home in Olam Hazeh, had a home in this world. And when the Shekhinah resided in this world, the world looked different. When the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed and the Shekhinah retreated to his celestial abode, the world changed. And those changes we feel to this very day. There were catastrophic events that occurred in El Paso, in Dayton, Ohio last week. The shootings which claimed many lives, injured many, and shattered worlds. Two of the stories that came out of the shooting in the Walmart in El Paso that I just could not understand were of two families. Two of the victims of the shooting in El Paso were Jordan and Andre Anchando, a married couple who were in the Walmart with their 2-month-old son. And when the police and paramedics came in and they started finding the victims, they found the mother huddled over her son, and the father, the husband, huddled over his wife. And they reconstructed what must have happened. Is that when the shooting occurred, a mother went on top of her child, like a mother does. Like a mother does. What mother wouldn't give her life to save her child? What mother wouldn't give anything for her child? So this young mother, 24 years old, threw herself on top of her child to shield her child. And then the father, the husband, threw himself on top of his wife, like any husband would do for his wife and for his child. They were both murdered, but their 2-month-old son, now an orphan, remained. Dave Johnson was in the Walmart with his wife and his granddaughter. And upon hearing the hail of bullets begin, threw his wife and his granddaughter to the floor and shielded them with his own body. He gave his life to protect them. I know these are not the stories of our Tisha B'Av. They're not stories of Jewish tragedy, but they're stories of human tragedy. Because it is only in a world without the Beis HaMikdash that a maniacal animal walks into a shopping center and starts shooting people. It's only in a world without a Beis HaMikdash that a person could kill his own sister and then walk into a bar and shoot total strangers. We wonder what we mourn when we don't have a Beis HaMikdash. I mourn this 2-month-old baby who will forever grow up without parents, because in their last incredible act of parental heroism, literally wanted to shield their little boy from the brutal and horrific realities that sometimes mark life in this world. This is what it means to live without a Beis HaMikdash. This is what it means to live in a time of Churban. And although for many of us it has been pushed into the recesses of our mind, it was just but a few months ago there was the terrible attack in the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, claiming the lives of Joyce Feinberg, Richard Godfrey, Rose Mallinger, Jay Rabinowitz, Cecil Rosenthal, David Rosenthal, Bernice Simon, Sylvan Simon, Daniel Stein, Melvin Wax, Irving Younger. And a few months ago in Poway, Laurie Gilbert Kay. And the scary part of all of this is that this packet has to go to print a couple of days before Tisha B'Av. And there's always the crazy question of what's going to occur between the time that the packet has to go to print and Tisha B'Av morning. And as I mentioned a number of times over Shabbos and last night, how Klal Yisrael currently mourns the loss of a precious young boy, 18-year-old Devir Sorek. It's just a few days shy of his 19th birthday. Murdered in cold blood on the side of the road. What did he do? Whose enemy was he? What was his crime? What was his transgression? And we know the answer. His high crime, which apparently was punishable by death, is that he was a Jew. It's not politics, it's not ideology. It's because he was a Jew. So as we sit here on the floor on Tisha B'Av morning for 2,000 years of collective loss, the Sorek family sits in the community of Ofra. And they also sit on the floor. But they don't have to access the collective memory of Klal Yisrael. They don't have to look back a few months, a few years, or a few millennia to feel the pain of Tisha B'Av. Because for them, the grave of their precious son is still fresh. Their clothing is still torn. The pain is not historical, the pain is contemporary. So my friends, this is what we mourn on Tisha B'Av. This is life without a Beis HaMikdash. When the Beis HaMikdash was here, there was a certain level of universal order. And now that it's not, we live in a world that often makes no sense. Random and senseless acts of violence and bloodshed have become commonplace. I don't need the Beis HaMikdash because I need a beautiful new shul. We have plenty of beautiful structures. I need the Beis HaMikdash because I need that universal equilibrium restored. I need my Beis HaMikdash because HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I need you. I need you to be back in this world. I can't have it that Hashamayim Shamayim LaHashem Ha'aretz Nasan Livnei Adam. I can't have it that you're over there and we're over here. Because if you're not with me, if you don't live in this world, if you don't have an address, if you don't have a domicile, then I don't know Ma Yovo Yom. And I don't know what the day will bring. And I can't live like that anymore. I can't do it anymore. I'm too tired, I'm too broken. We need you back in this world. We need your Beis HaMikdash back in this world. We need mankind to feel your presence again in this world. Because without your Beis HaMikdash and without you, we destroy one another. Without you and without your Beis HaMikdash in this world, the broken hearts are too much to comprehend and too much to be sovel, too much to ship, too much to shoulder, too much to carry. I want to share with you, before we recite the first of the Kinnos, an incredible idea, which I think also helps to frame the Tisha B'Av experience. If you look on page 2 in your packet, this is a selection from Rav Ephraim Ashri's Shailas and Shulas Mima'amakim. Rav Ashi, I've quoted him many times before, was the Rav of the Kovna ghetto, survived the war, made his home on the Lower East Side, was the Rav of the Beis Medrash HaGadol. And Rav Ashri, during the war years, received a number of questions from the residents of the ghetto. And he's overwhelmed by the nature of these questions, both because people actually asked shailas, they asked questions, even though they didn't have to. We know there's a concept in halacha of ones rachmana patre, that when you have extenuating circumstances, you are often exempted from the framework and confines of Jewish law. They were certainly onsim, but they still asked. And Rav Ashi was amazed and overwhelmed by the questions they asked and decided to commit them to writing. Now Rav Ashi had no access to svarim, no access to religious texts. As such, whatever he answered, he had to answer from memory. And he pledged that if he would survive the war, he would reconstruct these questions and answers, put in the proper footnotes, so as to provide a testimony to the spiritual courage of the Jews during the dark years of the Holocaust. It's a multi-volume series, and this particular piece is from the first chelik, first volume, Siman Zayin. And listen to the question. She'ela, biyom mar v'nimhar evra v'zam u'mishlachas malochim ra'im shal hatzora har Germani yimach shemam. It was a dark day, and the angels of death of the oppressive Germans, halahu yom yud gimel l'chodesh mar cheshvan shal shnas tafshin beis. This is the winter of 1941. Be'ez havaras hapula hagidola aktzia belaz shalavalas lamala me'asara alofim ish kitzon tifcha l'shchita. Rav Ashi describes over here an action that takes place in the winter of 1941, where they rounded up more than 10,000 Jews to be slaughtered. Ubahem nar v'zakein, there were children, old people, taf v'noshim, olalim v'yonkim. V'kulam hushi guf yisuri nefesh ayidei rabbi atabachim achazarm shlo yodurachim. Men and women, children, young and old, were so brutally slaughtered after enduring incredible torture. Ubechol zos lo huravna adayin sim'am shalarotzchim ashvelim l'dam nikiyim v'hefis mipesha tamachinu v'chayosinu hakdoshim shnitzru bi'adam la'asosem kito beinehem v'od yadam shalarotzchim haisen etuya v'masam lo shachacha ela ratzu lasos kliya m'sheiris Yaakov lachido migoy kedesh lo yizacher shem Yisrael od. Rav Ashi writes, the bloodthirst of the Germans could not be satisfied. 10,000 would never be enough. The bloodlust would not be satisfied until every last Jew was erased from the face of the earth. So what was the Shaila? Second paragraph on page 2. Neshalti az bizmano hu me'asridim ha'omlamim shenishru b'chayim ku'udim mutzalim me'ish v'nitzolu mi'pu'ulos hashmada hagidola hazo shala aktzia ha'imutheles aleim ha'chova levarich birchas ha'gomel ala chasadim ha'tovim shagomel osam hakel v'latzilim mi'pu'ulos hashmada zu. Listen to the shaila that was asked. And I'm reading this to you inside because seeing Rav Ashri's words is so incredibly important. They asked Rav Ashri, are we obligated to recite the bracha of Hagomel? Of Hagomel. All of us have benched the bracha of Hagomel. Sometimes it's for life-threatening situations. Sometimes it's because we were sick and experienced the refuah. Many of us have been privileged to either hear our wives bench Hagomel or recite the bracha on their behalf in the aftermath of bringing a child into this world. And a lot of times the bracha of Hagomel is for even simchadik things. Coming back from a vacation, a plane ride, from Eretz Yisrael. But here the Jews of Kovno had a different kind of question. They came to their Rebbe, they said, Rebbe, should we bench Hagomel if we were spared from this action? We were not one of the 10,000 sheep who were slaughtered. Should we bench Hagomel? Hagomel lechayavim tovos shegamalani kol tov. Should we say the bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, blessed are you Hashem, Master of the universe. Hagomel lechayavim tovos, who has given even those who are unworthy good things. Should we recite that bracha? Oh, mechevan sha'adayin lo chalfa me'aleim hasakana v'nafsham tuluya lahem mineged me'achar sha'adayin lo nechlot samitzar nafsham v'yoshuhin kasiri ani ubarzel skurim emusugarim b'so chumos hageto hamukaf milvad zos begeder shel til mechushmal. Or on the other hand, although we escape this action, we live in a ghetto that is surrounded by electrified barbed wire. Ve'en yotze ve'en ba, ghetto in which no one comes in, no one goes out. Ki milvad kol zos hishkina oyi b'chol shari mavoya ghetto shomrim mizuyonim b'muchonos yiriya lishmar as derech ha-ghetto v'achal ha-krev. Electrified barbed wire is not enough. There were German animals with machine guns stationed around as well. Hitil miyad kol mumas b'yedei ha-shomrim. V'imkein lefei zed dinam shel asridim ha'omlalim halalu. Hokedin yoshvei beis ha'asurim. Shadayin lo nush'u mimtzukosam v'lo niftu mired shachas. My friends, do you hear the shaila? You know the shailas we ask. The good kind of shailas. They washed the milchig pot in the fleshig sink. The good kind of shailas that we ask day in and day out. The shailas which are indicative of vibrant life. Have you ever heard of a shaila like this? I was saved from an action which claimed 10,000 lives. I survived. Should I give thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for my survival? Should I give thanks that I lived past this action? Or do I recognize the fact, have I really survived? Is this survival? Or better stated, is this even life? Is it life to live within the confines of a few blocks surrounded by barbed wire? Is it life to see people dying on the street every single day from disease and starvation? Is it life when you become so indifferent to death that you simply step over the bodies that are laying at your doorstep? Is that life? Have I been saved? Or am I just one of the walking dead? So the great tzaddik of Ashri says something amazing. That the tshuva itself is actually much longer. Because as I mentioned before, after the war, what he did was he went back and he reconstructed these questions and answers. And for each of the questions, he gives an incredible amount of pilpul, an incredible amount of discussion. So I'm giving you just the answer. It says, "L'fi zeh bevadai, she'en mutelas al hanitzolim shum chova levarich birchas hagomel. Kol zman shehem mesurim adayim bidei oivim la'asos bahem ketov beinehem." Rav Ashri says, I paskined that those who survived, those who were saved, should not recite Hagomel. Because as long as we are given over in the hands of our enemies, and as long as they have the power of life and death over us, and literally in any moment they can kill us. Rav Ashi says, yes, we have been saved, but we have not experienced salvation. The bracha of Hagomel is stated, is recited, when you are delivered from danger. Being delivered from danger means the danger is no longer there. Rav Ashi says, while it is true that, so if I could just ask you, for anyone who needs to silence their cell phone, to please do so. And while it is true that we have been saved from the action, we have not been delivered from danger. And as such, Hagomel would be inappropriate. That psak in and of itself is one that can be found when anyone goes through the sources. But then Rav Ashri does something absolutely amazing. If you turn the page, he goes on and he says, Tavna ladina mekala niskra la'el. De benidon didon ein tzrichen levarich berchas hagomel kol eile shenishru b'chaim mi'pu'ulos hashmada gidola me'achar sha'sakana lo chalfa mehem adayin v'hakoris adayin munaf al rosham ki nesunim hein adayin bidei soneihem So he goes on, skip to the next paragraph. Actually, to the end of that first paragraph. He says there's another reason. כדי לבלבל את היהודים להומם ולעבדם על ידי תקווס שווא ומדוכים להדאיב עוד יוסר את נפשם. Rav Ashri says something amazing. He says there's another reason why we can't bench Gomel. And that's because sometimes the Nazis, Yamachsham, the Zichram, they play psychological games with us. And sometimes they want us to feel like the danger is over. So we let our guard down. And if we let our guard down, we become even easier targets. If we stop being vigilant, at least when there's an action, we know there's an action coming. We could hide, we could run, we could try to escape. But if we think that all is good, if we think that everything is okay, the coast is clear, then they could truly kill and hurt even more of us. Rav Ashri therefore said that one cannot recite Gomel for an additional reason as well. Because if we say the bracha of Hagomel, we will think that everything is now okay. We literally dodged the bullet. We're safe. And to give the appearance of being safe and secure puts us all in even greater danger. And therefore, Rav Ashri said, Lachin pasakti, Lachin bevadai, the third to last paragraph there. Lachin bevadai in lahoros lahem sheyivarchu birchas hagomel la'achar pulas hashmada gidola. Ki al yidei zeh sheyivarchu birchas hagomel yaschilu hasridim ha'umolim halalu. Lidmos benafshon ki achin sar mar hamoves. Ukrova hi yeshu asam lavo. Ubazen nisayeh elotzchim ha'arura b'mizimasam hashvela. V'nakel aleim es hamelocha hanimzva shel hashmadas achinu v'achiosenu. So Rashi says we cannot say Hagomel. Because if we do that, we allow ourselves to think that everything is okay. And if we lull ourselves into the sense of security, we make the Nazis, their job even easier. We put our people in even greater peril. And therefore, Rav Ashri said, I instructed that no one should bench Hagomel, even those who are saved from the action, even afilu below Shemu Malchus, even without reciting the name of God. Because Rav Ashri said that the act of reciting Birchas Hagomel, not only on one hand is not true because we are not saved, but in fact imperils everyone else by allowing us to lower our guard. And he ends off by saying, the last paragraph, Ki kol zman shechutz mishichlas adayin cherev v'chadarim shoros ima hari nisunim adayin b'sakana maves v'avadon ad asher kadosh yisrael yirim kolo v'yarim l'mashchis heref. Rabbi Ashri says, we hope that the day will come where Klal Yisrael could raise their voice and tell the destructive angel to stop. Yochish pedus li amo hanosun batzaro bashivya lahotzi'ei mishibu l'geula u'me'afelo li'argadol. As Rav Ashri ends every one of his tshuvas with a tefillah. The tefillah that at some point in time all of this will stop. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will intervene. The destructive angel will be kept at bay. And the darkness will turn into great light. In the bottom of the page, you could see a picture of Rav Ashri. This is already in his later years, standing on the steps of Beis Medrash Hagadol on Lower East Side. On the right-hand side, a picture of the Kovna ghetto. I've mentioned many times that I had the great zchus to meet Rav Ashri. And while he was a man who was exceptionally short in stature, had the broadest shoulders that a man in Yisrael often requires, to shoulder the burden of the brokenhearted. What I found so dramatically amazing about this tshuva, and we're going to see this theme many times throughout our Kinnos this morning, is this inability to become whole. See, think about this for just a moment. What the Jews of Kovna were really asking Rav Ashri was, Rav Ashri, can we celebrate a small Yeshua? Can we celebrate a small salvation? Something good has happened. Do we have the right to celebrate it? And Rav Ashri dramatically enough tells them, no. No. You can't celebrate it because the night is still dark. The heart is still broken. And although you've been saved, you have not experienced salvation. And when I read this tshuva, I was so taken that isn't this the very source of the pain of Klal Yisrael? An inability to catch our breath. An inability to feel whole. No matter how quote unquote good, no matter how good things may be, there's a part of me that always feels so broken. There's a part of me that always feels so demolished. There's a part of me that always feels in a million different pieces. I'll share with you something amazing. If you turn to page 30 in your packet, this is from, I actually quoted from this incredible lady last night. Her name is Cecil Klein. Cecil Klein wrote a book of poetry. She's a survivor of Auschwitz. She wrote a book of poetry based on her experiences, because she found it difficult to speak about her experiences of the war, but she understood that she had to convey to the next generation what she had seen and what she had undergone. And she wrote this poem called How a Survivor Feels. Now I'll tell you how a survivor feels. A survivor is an actor experienced in her art. She puts on nice clothes matched up with a smile and tries to recapture the pleasures of life and becomes keenly aware of her inability to enjoy. A survivor will go on vacation while watching a show. There will appear in her mind the picture of her mother with her grandson in her arms gasping for breath. A survivor will read in the paper about a fire and desperately hope that her brother died from the fumes before the flames reached him. A survivor will think of her sister with her 3 dead children and inhale the gas to feel the agonies of their death. A survivor will go to a party and feel lonesome in the crowd. A survivor will be very quiet yet scream inside. A survivor will cry and pretend to her children it's a mere headache. A survivor will make large weddings, invite a great many people. But the ones she wants most will never arrive. A survivor will go to a funeral and not cry for the dead who died, but for the ones that were never buried. A survivor will reach out to you and not let you get close, for you remind her too much of the difference between her and you. Remind her too much of what she could have been yet will never be. A survivor is only at ease with other survivors, though they never talk about their past. A survivor is broken and beaten in spirit. She lies even to herself and pretends to be like you. A survivor is a wife, mother, friend, neighbor, yet unknown to all, she is known only to herself. A survivor is a restless, tortured person. The only thing she could really enjoy are her children. Yet a survivor's child is not easy to be, for she expects from her child the impossible. The survivor wants her child to constantly be happy, to do all the things she couldn't do, to learn everything she was denied. In her eagerness, she places a burden on the child, for the child must develop her own image, experience and learn from her own mistakes. The child must be allowed to experience even pain so that she can recognize happiness when it comes her way. A survivor will awaken a sweat from her nightmares, unable to sleep again. In vain does she chase the ghosts from her bedside, but they remain her guests for the remainder of the night. A survivor possesses one thing you do not: a fearlessness of death, for she has faced death so many times, and also because she knows that this is when she will finally find peace. I expose myself to you and remove the mask of the survivor so that you can become aware of the full impact of the Holocaust. To understand that when they killed the 6 million, you may as well know what happened to the living. This you cannot study in your textbooks. Our pain is not on record. It is important for you to know, since you are at the threshold of your life. Cecil Klein, survivor poet. Recently, I had the great zchus to be on a trip to Poland. Survivor trip with Project Inspire, part of Sefer Torah. J-Root's incredible guide, Tzvi Sperber. And when we were in Auschwitz, my mother, she should live and be well, read this poem. My mother, who was the child of survivors. And I've spoken about my grandparents, Zichron Livracha, many times throughout the years of Kinnos. Their experiences. And I think that the common theme between this tshuva of Rav Ashri and this poem by Cecil Klein, Zichron Livracha, is this notion of the scars that are left, the scars that are there, the scars which never go away. So in Rav Ashri's case, it was Jews, you cannot bench Gomel because you are not finished. And for Cecil Klein, it was the ghost by her bedside who would never leave. And for the children of survivors, it was their peckle, their burden, and their scars, and their baggage. And you know, I think about this because sometimes I did it a lot more when my children were younger, much younger. When they were little, I used to love to sit and watch them play. Not play with them, not that good of a father. But watch them play. And to hear them giggle, and to even see them fight a little bit in a good-natured way. And I often wondered, what is it? Every parent loves to see their children be happy. But I realized that's something that young children possess. That as you get older, become more aware, you can't really have, is that children have the capacity for unburdened happiness. They can be purely and genuinely happy. They can be happy. They could live in a moment, they could play a game, they could run around. And when they laugh, it's pure. There's nothing behind it. The Ari HaKadosh says that why is it that we cry at simchas? We cry. You can't go to a chasana where someone's not crying. The parents of the chassan, the parents of the kala, the grandparents, siblings, friends, people always cry to chasana. Here, a bar mitzvah boy give his pshetel, bas mitzvah girl give her Dvar Torah. The parents are crying. And the Ari HaKadosh says, but tears are a reflection of sadness. So why is it that sometimes in our moments of most acute joy, we cry? And the Ari HaKadosh says something amazing. Because I know that my moments of simcha will not last. That I know that in the aftermath of every joyous moment, there's going to be heartbreak, there's going to be pain, there's going to be tragedy. And so the Ari says that in that moment of happiness, all my neshama wants is to hold on to that simcha. To hold on to that joy as long as possible. But the neshama knows that it can't. The neshama knows that it can't. How long could parents Hold on to the simcha you feel when you marry off a child. I had the schos to have this simcha just a few months ago. A simcha of immeasurable, epic proportions. And the whole thing is over in a few moments. And sure, you could look at the album, you could look at the video, but never can you experience the simcha like you felt b'shas maisa when it was occurring. Adults cry in moments of simcha because the neshama knows that in the aftermath of every simcha, something heartbreaking inevitably occurs. Zohi achayim. That is the way of life. Children who do not have life experience, they don't experience simcha in the same way. They experience it in a better way. You ever with your child, little children, when the ice cream truck comes along, you would think that annoying tune is like the niggin of Mashiach. So happy. Let's go, let's run. You think to yourself, really? It's frozen milk on a stick that's overpriced. I'm going to have to run to get it and the this and the that. Did you ever take a step back and say, wow, I wish I could have a little piece of that. Not the ice cream, the simcha. My dear friends, we can't. As adults, we can't. Because I know too much. I've seen too much. I've seen parents bury their children. I've seen spouses say goodbye to each other. I've seen unresolved grief, tragic loss. As an adult, I know the tshuva from Rav Ashri and Siman Zayin Chelik Aleph. I know the poems of Cecil Klein, Zichron Livracha. And so I am no longer carefree. I no longer have that ability for pure, unbridled joy. I'll run with my children to the ice cream truck. I'll walk, they'll run. But it's never with the gaiety, it's never with the simcha they have. And I'll giggle along with them. But my heart knows too much of the history of my people and of the present circumstances of my people to ever be truly carefree. But lest you think that this is a curse, it's not. Because as Rav Ashri said to the Jews of the Kavna Ghetto, you must be acutely aware of your circumstances in order to survive. And as much as Cecil Klein tried to chase away the ghosts, deep down there was a feeling of privilege, I'm sure, of knowing that that connection with her mother and her father and her siblings was still there. And so even though we walk around with a heavy heart, even not on Tisha B'Av, but even though on any given day, I'm just a few words away from tears, because at the end of the day, I carry around the pain of my people. It is that pain that makes me aware and appreciative of the simcha in life. It is that pain that makes me aware of the gift of life. And it is that pain that makes me truly appreciative for the gift of being part of Am Yisrael.
Tisha B'Av together. If you have the packets, thank you to the fellow that went out to make more copies. In the back of the packet, it's in the Kinnos themselves start on page 31 in the packet, and they're numbered in accordance with the number in the art school Kinnos. It's page 152, Kinnos B'Av. Shabbos, and Yishim Yorai, Sima Ostasim, Mishkan, Mischos B'Rirai, Sakosa, Pokuru B'Rirai, Sakaf, Ma'ad B'Rirai, Kisilata B'Rirai, Nafla B'No, B'Tov B'Riyo, Anything Salach Hazal Memrakyo,
There's a moving Gemara, page 4 in your source packet, Kinnos packet. The Gemara says, Rabbi Chelbo, Rav Huna, Gemara Meseches Moed Katan. Haroa Sefer Torah shenikra. If one sees a Sefer Torah that has been torn, that has been ripped, chayiv l'kra shtei kriyas. Person has to rend their clothing twice. Acha echad al hagvil, one for the parchment, ve'echad al haksav, and one for the writing. Shene'emar acharei saraf hamelech es hamegillah ves hadvarim. It's an incredible Gemara. One sees a Sefer Torah destroyed, chas v'shalom. One sees a Sefer Torah ripped, 2 kriyas, 2 acts of rending. One for the parchment that has been destroyed, and one for the letters that have been destroyed. Rabbi Soloveitchik has an incredible insight which you'll learn on your own in number 5. But do not the Sfarim explain that this concept really refers to the that represents the guf, that's the body. Or the letters. The letters, that represents the neshama. That represents the soul. And therefore says Rabbi Chelbo, the name of Rav Huna, when a person sees a Sefer Torah that is destroyed, there are 2 elements of destruction. There's the physical destruction of the guf, of the body, of the parchment, and there's the spiritual destruction of the soul. We have to know there's another Gemara, Gemara Meseches Avodah Zarah, which we actually make reference to this in the Kinnos known as Arze Halavonon, which speaks about the Asar Rugei Malchus. And the Gemara speaks about the death of Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan. Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan's crime is that he taught Torah in public, and as a result, if you look at number 6, Hevi'uhu, 3 lines into number 6, Hevi'uhu v'karchu b'Sefer Torah. They brought Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan, they wrapped him up in a Sefer Torah. V'kifu b'chavilei zimuros, they surrounded him with branches. V'tzisu bahen as ha'ar, they burnt him alive. They lit him on fire. And to torture him more, ve'viu sipugin shel tzemer, v'sharu b'mayim v'nichum al libo. They took cotton sponges, soaked it in water, placed it on Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan's heart. Kadesh lo teitze libo nishmaso mehira, in order that he die a slow death. So he has a conversation with his daughter. Then if you skip down, Amar lo Talmidav, Students asked him a most incredible question. Rebbe, ma ata roeh? He said, Rebbe, what do you see? Rabbi Chanina ben Shadron is being murdered al Kiddush Hashem. He's wrapped in a Sefer Torah, he's lit on fire. Rebbe, what do you see? Rabbi Chanina ben Shadron answers, Gilyon nisrafim, va'osios parchos. The parchment is burning, but the letters are taking flight. The letters are ascending. So Rabbi Chanina ben Shadron comes along and he says, Rav Huna, you're incorrect. When the Sefer Torah is destroyed, the parchment could be obliterated. The physicality could be obliterated. But the osios, the letters, the soul, that's never destroyed. You might not be able to see it because it may take flight. It may go somewhere else. It may ascend to a place where human eyes cannot see it. But the osios are always there. Rabbi Chanina ben Shadron tells his Talmidim, I see the parchment burning, but the osios are parchos. And we see this statement of Rabbi Chanina ben Shadron play out so many times throughout our history. If you go to page 5 in your packet, to me one of the most haunting stories. Thursday, August 9th, 2001, was a typically hot summer day in the city of Jerusalem. At 2 p.m., the popular Sparrow restaurant at the busy intersection of King George Street and Jaffa Road was crowded with customers, mostly women, teens, and young children. This was during summer vacation. My family and I were in that Sparrow just a few days earlier. Unnoticed, an Arab terrorist entered the restaurant, his guitar case filled with lethal explosive, packed with nails, nuts, and bolts. Suddenly, Sparrow was ripped apart, shattering the lives of many families. A witness described the horrific scene. There was a blast so strong, I was sure the world was collapsing. Then tons of glass shattered all over. There was screaming and blood, people running and people frozen to the spot. Little kids were crying for their mothers and tons of blood all over the place. It was real chaos. I remember seeing a man covered in blood, a little girl with long hair matted in blood and glass. The smell of smoke, explosives, and human flesh all mingled together. 15 innocent people were murdered. Among them were Mordechai and Sira Shaibes Chuder, originally from Holland, and 3 of their children, Ra'aya, 14, Avram Yitzchak, 4, and Chemda, 2. Two other daughters, Leah, 11, and Chaya, 8, were critically injured. Chaya recalled her horrific experiences. The last time I saw my little brother Avram Yitzchak, he was lying on a stretcher in an ambulance. He had a bandage on his face. He was 4 years old. After the explosion, I ran out as fast as I could. I didn't look at anything, I just ran out. A medic took me to an ambulance, and that is where I saw Avram Yitzchak for the last time. After that, they took me on a stretcher to the hospital, and I had to have an operation to remove the screws that had entered my liver and leg. I saw a sign on the door that said, operating room, and started to cry. In my house, they are sitting Shiva right now. My brothers came here with their torn shirts. I asked them, why are your shirts torn? Why are your shirts torn? but they didn't want to tell me that our parents were dead. My brothers had not been with us in the restaurant. They found me first. After that, they found out that my sister and my little brother were dead. My little sister had always been happy. I remember her so well. She used to laugh all day long. Now our parents are not alive either. But soon Mashiach will come. And all the people that have died, and all the people killed in wars and terror attacks will come back to life. 8-year-old Chaya Shavis Chuder. But the story of this family has an incredible untold part. On page 6, this is from Rabbi Lau's, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Lau's autobiography. Out of the depths, he had known the Shavis Chuder family. He had known the parents. And he recalls over here that he gave a hesped, he delivered a eulogy at the Levaya. And in the first paragraph is an excerpt from his eulogy. What is happening in heaven right now? In the Holy Host, I asked in my eulogy, when Avram, Chebda, and Raya go up to heaven, 5 members of one family, 5 cruelly murdered young ones. How old was Mati? How old was Sira? They were at the beginning of their lives. He was an educator. She taught the disabled. And together they raised a family of 8 children of their own. Now more than half of this family has been destroyed. Days after the funeral, I went to visit the wounded from the Sparrow attack who were in Shari Tzedek Hospital. I tried to speak to a girl of 16 who was severely wounded. The girl said, I was sitting in Sparrow with 2 friends, she said, and we were eating pizza. Beside us were 2 tables joined together. A big family sat there. The father, the mother, and the kids. All of a sudden we heard a terrible boom and saw frightening flames. In a second I felt that I was burning. I heard the man sitting with his family at the next table, the table next to me, say, children. Children, say Shema Yisrael out loud with me. They said it, and then there was a heavy silence. And I woke up in the hospital. That horrifying image stuck in my mind. Mati Shavis Chuder knew that his family was going to die. And he made sure that the last words that came from the mouths of his young children were Shema Yisrael. I recalled my father as he entered the gas chambers in Treblinka, along with the Jewish community of Piotr Kov and Preshov. The words of Shema Yisrael on his lips. And no matter how many times I read this story, there are certain things that you don't want your imagination to conjure up. But to imagine a father laying there with his children, knowing that none of them will survive, and having not just the presence of mind, but the emunah, the belief to clasp onto your children's hands in their final moments. To say with your children, Shema Yisrael. As they all left the world together. And I think this is the meaning of Rabbi Hanina ben Shrajon's words. Gilyon nisrafim Gilyon nisrafim ba'osios parchos. The parchment is burned. The body is easily destructible. Va'osios parchos. But the letters sometimes are torn from the parchment. And the letters sometimes cannot be seen by human eyes. But the letters are there. Gilyon Nisraf, and the parchment could be easily destroyed. And it's been destroyed so many times throughout the last thousands of years. Thank you. Va'osios parchos, but the letters remain alive in us. The letters remain alive in our people. And we should be zocha to pass down these letters to our children. I want to skip a little bit to page 9. It's a long day today, and so whatever we don't get to cover in the packet, you'll see all important sources. As I mentioned before, I had the opportunity to go to Poland and to see what was, not just in terms of the Holocaust, but also to be able to see the world that was there, the life that was there, the vibrance that was there. And then, of course, also to feel the incredible heartbreak over the incredible destruction and decimation. And I want to share with you something amazing, because I think it amplifies a little bit of why we have such difficulty with Tisha B'Av. I don't mean in feeling the pain of loss. I mean just in terms of why sometimes these experiences feel a bit surreal. Our first stop when we arrived in Poland was in the Warsaw Ghetto, was in the Warsaw Cemetery. The Warsaw Cemetery is a huge, sprawling cemetery. Just to give you an idea as to how big it is, one of the places that I very much wanted to go, but we weren't able to go, is the grave of the kever of the wife of the Piazetzna. We spent a lot of time last year speaking about the Piazetzna of Klonomis Kamish Shapira, the Ish Kodesh. His wife who died before the war, and his son and daughter-in-law who were killed in the bombardment of Poland. When the Germans invaded Poland, they're buried in the ghetto. They're buried in the cemetery. And we're with, obviously, Baruch Hashem, a large group. And I figured, okay, maybe we'll just, a couple of people wanted to go there, we'll just go quickly. And the guy told us that it was about a 35-minute walk to where the Piazetzna's relatives were buried. That's how sprawling and large that cemetery is. And we went to the kever of a great tzaddik, Rav Shlomo Zalman Lifshitz, known as the Chemdas Shlomo. 1765 to 1839. And I want to share with you something amazing. When one looks in the halachic literature of the late 1700s and early 1800s, even to mid 1800s, you find an incredible amount of halachic literature written about cholera and dealing with cholera specifically again on fast days. The Chassam Sofer, the great Tzaddik Chassam Sofer, was a contemporary of the Chemdas Shlomo, was the Rav in Preshov. So the Chassam Sofer deals with this. Specifically again, what do we do regarding fasting on Yom Kippur and cholera? So the Chassam Sofer, because apparently if a person is fasting, they're more compromised. They contract the disease more easily. So the Chassam Sofer writes, and again, you'll look at this on your own, but he writes in number 1 on page 9, paragraph Dalid, Amnam lefi lashna she'ela sharofim hishiru matzas ha-pesach beiso b'tainis mashma kishin segurim bevateim ina tainis mazik lahem im ken yis'anu v'yiskurim v'yispalu b'yichidus v'lo yikra b'torah. So the Chassam Sofer paskind that when there was a cholera outbreak, he says the most important thing by Yom Kippur is that people should be able to fast. So perhaps if it's better that people go ahead and stay at home, close the door to your house, stay in the house, and go ahead and fast, better to fast than to come to shul. Even if there's no minyan, there's no kriyas Torah, let everybody fast. But then the Chassam Sofer says, but if the doctors say no, just fasting in general is dangerous, then go ahead and have the people, let them eat, let them drink, but they should use shi'urim. They should use specific amounts. We know on Yom Kippur by the din of Achola, if possible, again, to still eat less than a certain amount, drink less than a certain amount. That's certainly preferable. There's a famous psak, if you turn the page on page 2, by Rabbi Shmuel Silber. It's brought down actually an incredible biography of Rabbi Shmuel Silber. There's a little bit of an episode. Rabbi Shmuel Silber got up before Yom Kippur, on Yom Kippur, and he told everyone that they have to eat. They have to eat. Famous psak of Rabbi Shmuel Silber caused a lot of controversy. Not everyone agreed with how he did it, with what he said. But Rabbi Shmuel Silber paskin that in cases of cholera epidemic and outbreak, everybody has to eat. See, and why am I talking to you about this? So the Chemdas Shlomo had to deal with the same thing. And the Chemdas Shlomo pretty much aligned himself with the psak of the Chassam Sofer, that if possible to remain at home, good. But even if people are going to have to come out, eat and drink with shi'urim. And so the story is told that on the Yom Kippur of that cholera outbreak, everyone was in shul for Kol Nidrei. But the Chemdas Shlomo, was the Rav of Warsaw. He was the Rav. There are many Talmidei Chachamim, many great Gedolim, but he was the Rav. The Chemdas Shlomo is not by Kol Nidrei. Can you imagine this? So they wait. The Rav finally comes in. Say to the Chemdas Shlomo, is everything okay? What happened? So he said, because there is this cholera outbreak, there are many people home sick, and it's Kol Nidrei. Everyone, of course, wants to get to Kol Nidrei. And all of these cholim, all of these sick people, would be left at home alone, with no one to look after them. And so the Chemdas Shlomo says, before I came to Kol Nidrei, I just wanted to visit as many homes as I could. Check on the cholim, check on the people who were sick, to make sure they had what they need before I went off to daven. The chief rabbi of Warsaw, the Chemdas Shlomo, the Gadol Shebigdolim, on Kol Nidre was making sure that people who had contracted cholera were comfortable at home. There are many lessons from this story. But the one I want to highlight is this is who we are. This is not unique to the Chemda Shlomo. I can bring you thousands of stories, or I'm sure there are thousands of stories, of regular people who exhibit that kindness, of regular people, an incredible Baalei Chesed, concerned for the welfare of the other, because that is who we are. We are Rachmanim b'nei Rachmanim. We are compassionate. We are compassionate ones, the children of compassionate ones, sometimes even to a fault, sometimes to our own detriment. I'll never forget when we were in Eretz Yisrael, my family was in Eretz Yisrael during the Second Lebanon War. And I don't remember the circumstances, but the front page of one of the newspapers, the IDF had gone into one of the Arab villages, a nighttime raid, had arrested a whole bunch of terrorists. And the picture was that the terrorists are sitting there, handcuffed, blindfolded, and there's a soldier giving them water. I don't know what the caption was, but the caption could have been Mika Amcha Yisrael. Because, my dear friends, make no mistake about it. There is absolutely no reciprocity with the chesed of Klal Yisrael. If the tables were turned, as they have been so many times, we could only imagine the unspeakable treatment that we would receive at the hands of our enemies. Can you imagine this? Terrorists. These weren't good people. These weren't upstanding citizens. These were people who would have killed and been killed. But yet, when they're in our charge, we'll give them water to drink. Because no human being should have to suffer. We are Rachmanim b'nei Rachmanim. And if you look at the picture on the bottom of page 10, right across the field from the grave of the Chemdas Shlomo. The Chemdas Shlomo's grave is still standing, the structure on top of it. Literally right across from his grave is a field, and it's marked off. There are two fields actually, two exact fields that size. There's a pathway in the middle. And they discovered not so long ago that that field is the site of a mass grave. Two mass graves containing between them 100,000 Jews. 100,000 Jews murdered in the Warsaw Ghetto and the Warsaw in general, buried in those fields. And the contrast is so overwhelmingly startling. You could look from those fields to the grave of the Chemdas Shlomo. The Rav who was such a Baal Chesed that he put his own Yom Kippur on the side so that he could take care of his fellow brothers and sisters. I see his grave in the distance, and I stand there by a field overgrown now with grass, a field that's marked off by some yellow tape. And what you see in the picture, it's hard to grasp what it looks like from a picture, but it's times two. It's two such fields like that. An anonymous grave for 100,000 of our brothers and sisters. And this is why sometimes it's so difficult for us to wrap our head around Tisha B'Av. Because we have suffered every single imaginable and unimaginable atrocity that one human being can commit against another. The nations of the world have not spared us from anything. You would understand that maybe a little bit more if we ourselves were such an atrocious or barbaric people. But we're not. We are given the obligation to decimate one nation, Amalek. But yet, even if the Rambam paskins that even if an Amalekite decides to convert, Achichahu, we embrace him as a Jew. This dichotomy itself is so incredibly overwhelming, so difficult to understand. We are Rachmanim b'nei Rachmanim, and yet we feel so incredibly trampled upon. We feel so incredibly mistreated. We would never and have never treated any other nation like this. We look out for others and we look out for our own with unbridled kindness, and yet bear the brunt of the barbaric, animalistic treatment of the nations of the world. If you continue on a little bit to page 11, one of the stops we made in our trip was to the Lodz ghetto. And seeing the ghetto, seeing in general these places that were the sites of such horrific events. And now you look at them and life has just gone on. You go to the Warsaw Ghetto. What was the Warsaw Ghetto? There's one remaining wall by the ghetto. There's a beautiful high-rise apartment building. People come, people go. The world has moved on. Thank you. Everything has moved on. And we moved on also. But today we take ourselves back. And I want to share with you something incredibly, overwhelmingly heartbreaking that occurred in the Lodz ghetto. Chaim Mordechai Remkowski, who was the head of the Judenrat, who was the head of the Jewish Council in the Lodz ghetto. There's a lot of historical debate about the nature of this individual. Some cast him as a Rasha Merusha, as a terrible individual who tried to exploit the plight of his people, to extract for himself some type of grandeur, power. And others say he was a person in a difficult situation trying to do whatever he could for his brothers and sisters. It's not our place to pass judgment. Ki hamishpat lelokimu. Kadosh Baruch Hu judges each of us, not our place to judge one another. But what I want to share with you is something amazing. This is from a speech that he gave in 1942. We stood in the very spot where this speech was given. And Remkowski said the following: a grievous blow has struck the ghetto. They are asking us to give up the best we possess, the children and the elderly. I was unworthy of having children of my own, so I gave the best years of my life to children. I've lived and breathed with children, and never imagined I would be forced to deliver this sacrifice to the altar with my own hands. In my old age, I must stretch out my hands and beg, brothers and sisters, hand them over to me. Fathers and mothers, give me your children. I had a suspicion that something was going to befall us. I anticipated something and was always like a watchman, on guard to prevent it. But I was unsuccessful because I did not know what was threatening us. The taking of the sick from the hospitals caught me completely by surprise. And I give you the best proof there is of this. I had my own nearest and dearest among them, and I could do nothing for them. I thought that would be the end of it, that after that they'd leave us in peace, the peace for which I longed for so much, for which I've always worked, which has been my goal. But something else, it turned out, was destined for us. Such is the fate of the Jews. Always more suffering, and always more suffering, especially in times of war. Yesterday afternoon, they gave me the order to send 20,000 Jews, more than 20,000 Jews out of the ghetto. If not, we will do it. So the question became, should we take it upon ourselves to do it ourselves or leave it to others to do? Well, we, that is, I and my closest associates, thought first not about how many will perish, but how many is it possible to save? And we reached the conclusion that however hard it would be for us, we should take the implementation of this order into our own hands. I must perform this difficult and bloody operation. I must cut off limbs in order to save the body itself. I must take the children, because if not, others may be taken as well, God forbid. I have no thought of consoling you today, nor do I wish to calm you. I must lay bare your full anguish and pain. I have come to you like a bandit, to take from you what you treasure most in your hearts. I have tried using every possible means to get the order revoked. I tried. And when that proved to be impossible, to soften the order, just yesterday I ordered a list of children age 9. I wanted at least to save this one age group, the 9 to 10-year-olds. But I was not granted this concession. On only one point did I succeed, in saving 10-year-olds and up. Let this be a consolation to our profound grief. Page 12. There are in the ghetto many patients who can expect to live only a few days more, maybe a few weeks. I don't know if the idea is diabolical or not, but I must say it. Give me the sick. In their place we can save the healthy. I know how dear the sick are to any family, and particularly to Jews. However, when cruel demands are made, one has to weigh and measure who shall, can, and may be saved. And common sense dictates that the saved must be those who can be saved and those who have a chance of being rescued, not those who cannot be saved in any case. We live in a ghetto, mind you. We live with so much restriction that we do not have enough even for the healthy, let alone for the sick. Each of us feed the sick at the expense of our own health. We give our bread to the sick. We give them our meager ration of sugar, our little piece of meat. And what's the result? Not enough to cure the sick, and we ourselves become ill. Of course, such sacrifices are most beautiful and noble, but there are times when one has to choose. Sacrifice the sick who haven't the slightest chance of recovery, and who also may make others ill, or rescue the healthy. I could not deliberate over this problem for long. I had to resolve it in favor of the healthy. In this spirit, I could not appropriate instruction. I gave the appropriate instructions to the doctors, and they will be expected to deliver all incurable patients, so that the healthy who want and are able to live will be saved in their place. I understand you, mothers. I see your tears. I also feel what you feel in your hearts. You fathers who will have to go to work in the morning after your children have been taken from you, when just yesterday you were playing with your dear little ones. All this I know and feel. Since 4 o'clock yesterday, when I first found out about the order, I've been utterly broken. I share your pain. I suffer because of your anguish, and I don't know how I'll survive this, where I will find the strength to do so. I must tell you a secret. They requested 24,000 victims, 3,000 a day for 8 days. I succeeded in reducing the number to 20,000, but only on the condition that these be children under the age of 10. Children 10 and older are safe, since the children and the age together equal only some 13,000 souls. The gap will have to be filled with the sick. I can barely speak. I am exhausted. I only want to tell you what I'm asking of you. Help me carry out this action. I am trembling. I'm afraid that others, God forbid, will do it themselves. A broken Jew stands before you. Do not envy me. This is the most difficult of all orders I have ever had to carry out at any time. I reach out to you with my broken, trembling hands and beg, give into my hands the victims, so that we can avoid having further victims, and the population of 100,000 Jews can be preserved. So they promised me, if we deliver our victims by ourselves, there will be peace. The commentaries at this point in the speech, the crowd begins shouting out, we will not let our children go alone, we will all go. Koski continues, these are empty phrases. I don't have the strength to argue with you. If the authorities were to arrive, none of you would be shouting. I understand what it means to tear off a part of the body. Yesterday I begged on my knees, but it did not work. From small villages with Jewish populations of 7,000 to 8,000, barely 1,000 arrived here. So which is better? What do you want? That 80,000 to 90,000 Jews remain? Or God forbid that the whole population be annihilated? Page 13. You may judge as you please. My duty is to preserve the Jews who remain. I do not speak to hotheads. I speak to your reason and conscience. I have done and will continue to do everything possible to keep arms from appearing in the streets and blood from being shed. The order could not be undone. It could only be reduced. One needs the heart of a bandit to ask from you what I am asking. But put yourself in my place. Think logically and you'll reach the conclusion that I cannot proceed in any other way. The part that can be saved is much larger than the part that must be given away. And on that day, in 1942, September of 1942, 20,000 children under the age of 10 were taken from their families, led to the train station to Radegast, which is the picture that you see on page 13, the top left. No one fully comprehending what was going to happen to these precious children. All of them murdered in cold blood. And you see the pictures. You see the pictures on the right-hand side. We could only possibly add in the captions of a child saying goodbye to his mother, children saying goodbye to an older sibling, younger sibling. And then on the left-hand side, precious and beautiful Jewish children lined up. Miyitain Roshi Mayim. Like the Navi says, even if my head was water, could I even begin to comprehend what this means? Could I begin to comprehend what it means for a parent to have to hand over a child? Children under 10 have to go. Children over 10 will be saved. How do you function as a human being? How do you ever sleep again? How do you wake up? How do you talk? How do you walk? How do you eat? How do you breathe? How do you do anything? After knowing what's happened, to your children. We stood in the areas where the selection took place, and we went to the train station, to the picture you see on page 13, on the top left-hand picture, Radagast. We stood by that train station, and the cattle cars are still there. We opened up the cattle car, and our group walked in. To stand, to close your eyes and to imagine that you're standing in a place where beautiful little children are crammed in, shipped off to their death. It's incomprehensible. You know, it made me think, and it's a strange thing to think about. You know how like sometimes when it's the first day of school, you have little kids and you send them off and you see the fear in their eyes, or any new experience that they have to undergo and they have that fear. What is it going to be? And as a parent, all you want to do is go with them. I'll go with you to school. I'll go with you to camp. I'll accompany you so you won't be scared. I know I can't do that. Because life is about facing those new realities on your own and by yourself. But I know the pain that I experienced seeing my children have to go off for beautiful new experiences, but nevertheless wishing that there was something I could do to take away their pain. Then I wonder about those parents in the Lodz ghetto. I wonder if I was the parent of one of the children in this picture. If I was the parent who had to pack my child's bag as they were going off to who knows where. $20,000 children. 20,000 children. And you could see them in the picture. Some of them smiling, some of them barefoot. Children are often naturally the eternal optimists. When I look in their faces, I wonder, what was going through your precious little heart, your precious little soul? Were you scared, or did you think you were going somewhere good? How many tears did you cry? How lonely and forsaken did you feel? How my heart breaks for the childhood that you never had. How I miss you even though I don't know you. How much better my life could have been had your life not ended. And when we're standing in that cattle car, I said over a story which to me is such a moving account, even of the heroism of children. It's a story about two brothers. The older brother survived the war. His name is Leon Saplinsky. And Leon and his younger brother, I can't remember the younger brother's name, separated from their parents, put on one of these cattle cars, one of these transports like we're describing over here. Before they were separated, Leon's mother's last words to her oldest son was, "Take care of your little brother." And so they're on the train. People cramped and packed. Nothing to eat, nothing to drink. Leon Saplinsky's younger brother is constantly, understandably complaining about the thirst. What is he supposed to do? There's nothing to drink, there's nothing to be found. Finally, he has an incredible idea. This was occurring during the winter, and he had noticed that there was snow accumulating on the barbed wire outside of the window. So he tried to push his hand through the barbed wire to get some of the snow, but it was too narrow. So Leon Saplinsky, hearing his mother's words echoing in his head, said, "You know what? I have to get the snow. And if it costs me a layer of skin, that's the price I'll pay." Pushes his hand through the barbed wire, accumulates the snow, a handful of snow, life-saving snow, water. Brings his hand back in, and he notices something that he had not noticed beforehand. There was a young mother with a baby who was sitting in the corner of the cattle car. And the baby was incessantly crying. The baby was hungry, the baby was thirsty. Leon had not recognized it before because he was just absorbed in his own tsar and the tsar of his brother. And he sees this young mother. Can't quiet her baby, she has nothing for him. He goes over to the mother and he hands her the handful of snow. She takes it gratefully, gives it to her baby. And for the first time in hours, the baby is soothed, the baby is quiet. Leon goes back to his little brother, sits down, puts his arm around him and begins to cry. And his little brother looks up at him and says, "Leon, it's okay. I wasn't thirsty anyway. Leon, it's okay. I wasn't thirsty anyway." It's Mika Amcha Yisrael. It's not only the Chemda Shlomo who is an incredible Baal Chesed. It's not only Rabbanim or Talmidei Chachamim who are great Baal Chesed. But even the Pshutei Amcha, simplest Jew, even the smallest child, has a capacity for so much incredible greatness. We often think that we're ordinary. We think that we're regular. We think that the great stories are the stories that come from accomplished people, old and wise, with reverential titles. And what we forget is that the very genetic code, the DNA for greatness, is within each of us. And sometimes it's pushed to the surface in the most horrible and horrific of circumstances. So as we stood there in Radagast and stood inside of the cattle car, as I look in that picture, I wonder, were any of those children in that train that I was in? Because the truth is, all I would want to do, if I had one wish, would somehow be gather them into my arms, take them away from that terrible place, and rescue them from the horrors that they saw with their pure and innocent little eyes. But as we stood there in that cattle car, we realized that they were gone. Some of them probably gone without a trace. Maybe entire families perished. And it could be that there are children in these pictures. It is probably that there are children in these pictures who no one could even identify them by name. There's no family left to be able to say, "It's my child, that's my brother, that's my sister." Gone. As I mentioned last night in the comments before Kinnos, so much of what our obligation to do is to mourn for those who have become nameless and identityless. So much of our avodah is to mourn for those who can be so easily forgotten because they're just a face in the crowd. But as we mourn, let us also remember the heroism of our great Rabbanim like the Chendas Shlomo, and the heroism of the smallest of children like Leon Saplinsky. Ben Yakirli, Yakirli, Hayim, Yalech HaShohim, Shashohim, Ki midei, Avabai, Ki midei dam, Charas Keranor, Hoyas Keranor, Hinavavakei, Hamomei Ailoi, Hayoi Rachei Marachameh, Hanom Niom, Niom Hashem, Yagei, Hamo, Hayoi Rachei Marachameh, Niom Hashem, Yakirli, Ababa Yakirli, Shashoe Kimine Havava Kimine Kere Oh yes Kerano Oh yeah okay Hamomei Ailoi Oh yeah Nachem Arachame Enom Neom Ay 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 nina nay ay 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 hum nina nay mama yalana hey amai my my ya ya nina na ay 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 nina nay Niranai ayam, niranai amamai amamai, niranam ayam ayam, niranam ayam ayam, ya 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 ya, niranam ayam. Niranai, niranam. We continue now with Kinnos Zayin in the Kinnos packet. It is page 158, after page 30 in the Kinnos section, Kinnos Zayin. Eicha Atztava. Can you do the Kinnos? I have to step out for a second. From the Lodz ghetto, many of the Jews there were sent to a place called Kinnos. If you take a look on page 14, you go today to this place, so it looks like an open, barren field. You only know that something happened there because of the monuments that are there. And then as we were planning the trip, the guide who took us, Rabbi Silber from J-Roots, that told me that there's an incredible opportunity for a mitzvah at Chelmno. I said, okay, what's the opportunity for the mitzvah? He said, there's an opportunity for likot atzamas. Likut Atzamas literally means the gathering of remains for burial purposes. I said, Likut Atzamas, how could there be such a... Chelmno was the site where the Nazis in Machshon v'Zichron experimented with the use of gas vans. If you look on page 14 on the bottom right-hand picture, Kishmo Kenu, it was a retrofitted truck that had a room in the back, load in a group of people, pump in gas, and they would die there. And that's how Jews were exterminated in the Chelmno. But they were buried in such haste that they often were not buried deep enough in the ground. So that if you walk around Chelmno, you could literally find bone fragments almost everywhere you step. Can you imagine? You walk into a field and you could see from the pictures a little bit of the enormity of the field. And where you walk, there are bone fragments from Jews who were not only murdered, but were so hastily buried that even their remains could not find any type of enduring menucha. And so, our group had the incredible zechus to be able to walk around the site for a little while, gather up the bone fragments that we could find, and provide our brothers and sisters with Kever Yisrael, with the Jewish burial. There is a survivor testimony from Chelmno by a man known as Mordechai Pachlebnik, Michal Pachlebnik. And Mordechai Pachlebnik gave his testimony after the war about what he saw in Chelmno, what he did in Chelmno. And so I only included the first part of here. I'll tell you some of it Baal Peh. He discusses when he realized what was happening with the gas vans. He says, I realized that they were leading the Jews to the inner grounds. Suddenly I heard a truck door slam, followed by an outburst of screaming and banging on the truck's walls. Then I heard the engine start, and after 6 or 7 minutes, when the screams fainted and died, the truck left the palace grounds. Next, we were ordered to go to a large room upstairs. On the floor, we could see men's clothes and women's coats and shoes scattered about. We were told to carry all the clothes and shoes to some other room quickly. In the new room there, we already had a lot of clothing and shoes. We put the shoes in a separate pile. Having finished the task, we were herded back to the basement cell. Another truck arrived, and the whole procedure was repeated. This lasted all day long. I noticed that more trucks arrived at the grounds than left. I came to the conclusion that the trucks leaving Chelmno must have had larger carrying capacity. Skips down a little bit. When our inmates returned from the woods in the evening, they said they had been burying Jews from Kolo in a common grave in the woods. They removed the corpses from large black vans, in which, according to their accounts, Jews had been poisoned with exhaust fumes. The corpses were in underwear. In the van there had been some towels and pieces of soap. This convinced me that Jews, having undressed, were given towels and soap and led to the basement, where they allegedly were supposed to take a shower. He skips a little bit and going into incredible detail about unloading the Jews who were gassed in these vans. He says 12 to 13 vans a day arrived in the woods. On this basis, I figured out about 1,000 people were gassed every day. Jews who carried the corpses from the van had to remove the wooden floor grate from the vehicle and wipe the car thoroughly. Valuables were also placed in a suitcase. The towels and pieces of soap were collected separately and driven back on a daily basis. And then he records something amazing. The third van, which came to Chmielnicki Square on that day, Tuesday, brought the bodies of my wife and 2 children, a 7-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. They were thrown out of the vehicle. I laid myself down near my wife's body and wanted to be shot. I begged to be shot. An SS man approached me and said, "This burly man can still work very well." He whipped me 3 times and forced me to continue working. Mordechai Pachlebnik's testimony goes on. You could read the words. You can imagine unloading the bodies of any Jews, but this man, his wife, and his 2 children. But he goes on and he gives his testimony. And his testimony is from one of the few who survived Chelmno and was able to give us a picture of what happened there. Next to Chelmno, there was a small little town, Dabi, where Jews were kept in the basement of a church On page 15, you could see a picture of that church. That's the bottom right-hand image. And after the war was over, it must be that some of the survivors took people back to that basement. And underneath the stairs of the basement, they found a pile of rags. They undid the rags, and they found the remains of a baby. Right next to the remains of that baby, they found a knife. The knife, the image, is the one you have to the left of the church. You could see in the inscription, it's Shabbos Kodesh. It was explained to us that, whereas today people use like a longer knife for challah, it was very common, I guess in pre-war Europe, that you would use something like a pocket knife for your challah. There was dried blood on the knife. The remains of the baby, the knife, were sent to a forensics laboratory in Eretz Yisrael. And it turns out that the blood on the knife matched the blood type of the baby. And then they realized what happened. Someone gave a bris milah to this child. There was no possibility that this baby would survive. There was no possibility that this baby could make it through the Gehenna that was unfolding all around it. But whoever it was, maybe it was a parent, maybe it was someone else, decided that the child deserved the bris milah. And somehow, from a variety of different accounts, and I don't know how they arrived at this, but they were able to track down that the name of the baby was Yaakov Yisrael. The little baby whose remains were found under the steps in the basement of a church. Next to the knife, it was used to give him a bris milah. Yaakov Yisrael. So my friends, as we stood in Chelmno, I gave a hesped, I gave a eulogy for Yaakov Yisrael. I've given many eulogies in my life. Some of them for tragic circumstances, young and untimely deaths, and some of them for people, Baruch Hashem, who are privileged to have arichos yamim v'shanim. Sometimes I know the people well, sometimes I barely know them. But to give a hesped for a baby who died al Kiddush Hashem, and I would say, I could say, fortunately I've given hespedim for babies. But those were babies who at least were zocha to feel the warmth of their mother's embrace, to feel the love and the warmth of community, to have tefillos uttered on their behalf. But little Yaakov Yisrael, I don't know what happened to you. I don't know if someone held you as you died. I don't know if someone said Shema Yisrael with you as your soul left your body. Or we don't know who your parents were. We don't know anything about you, precious little baby. Precious little baby, forgotten about for years. Until someone found your little holy body underneath the steps of the church. And I'll share with you the words that I said for the hesped of Yaakov Yisrael. He said, Yaakov Yisrael, your parents chose for you such a most beautiful and precious of names. As the Gemara says, Minalan Dishma Garam. We know that a name captures the essence of a person. And as the Arizal writes, when parents name a child, they are given a degree of Ruach HaKodesh, of prophecy. Because my name captures the entirety, the essence of who I am, and yet my parents have to give it to me when they barely know me. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu assists them, and gives them and helps them give a child a name that is fitting. And you, Yaakov Yisrael. The name Yaakov speaks to the nature of your life. Yaakov Avinu was born v'yodo okeves, yodeh ochezes. His hand was holding on to the heel of Esav. Yaakov was born underneath the heel of Esav. Precious little baby, you were also born at a time when we were under the heel of Esav. Your entire short life was lived underneath the heel of Esav. And so yes, you are a Yaakov, but your precious and saintly parents also named you Yisrael. And Yisrael is the name that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives to Yaakov after the night that he fought with the Malach, after the night that he fights with the mysterious Ish. And as the pasuk tells us, Yaakov Avinu the next morning, V'utzoleya al yirecho, he's limping, but he's standing. The name Yisrael teaches us. The name Yisrael teaches us that even though we are battered, and we are injured, and we are hurt, even though we are broken-hearted and sometimes of broken spirit, even though sometimes we are limping, we always remain standing. When the sun comes up, we're limping, but you are Yisrael. Ki sarisa iman Hashem v'melokim batuchal. You struggled with anyone and everyone, but yet you persevered. This was the hesped for little Yaakov Yisrael. The Kelmali for Yaakov Yisrael was Yaakov Yisrael ben Avram. For of course we don't know his parents' name. But I hope that little Yaakov Yisrael, that his neshama saw us gathered, that his neshama heard our words of hesped, that his neshama experienced an incredible aliyah because his sacrifice that he was too young to even realize inspires us to this very day. This reminded me of an incredible story. If you take a look at number 4 on page 15, each morning at dawn, the Germans would lead us out of the camp for a day of hard labor that ended only at nightfall. Each pair of workers was given a huge saw and expected to cut its quota of logs. Because of the horrendous conditions in the camp and the starvation rations on which we were supposed to subsist, most of us could barely stand on our feet. But we sawed away knowing that our lives depended on it. Anyone collapsing on the job or failing to meet his daily quota was killed on the spot, God forbid. One day, as I pulled and pushed the heavy saw with my partner, I was approached by a young woman from our work detail. The pallor of her face showed her to be in an extremely weakened physical state. Rebbe, she whispered to me, "Do you have a knife?" I immediately understood her intention and felt the great responsibility that rested upon me. "My daughter," I begged, concentrating all the love and conviction in my heart in the effort to dissuade her from her intended deed. "Do not take your own life. I know that your life now is a living hell, from which death seems a blessed release, but we must never lose hope. With God's help, we will survive this ordeal and see better days." But the woman seemed oblivious to my words. "A knife," she repeated. "I must have a knife now before it's too late." At that moment, one of the German guards noticed our whispered conversation and approached us. "What did she say to you?" he demanded of me. We both froze. Conversing during work was a grave transgression. Many a camp inmate had been shot on the spot for far lesser crimes. The woman was the first to recover. "I asked him for a knife," she said. To my horror, and of course this is the Bluzha Rebbe telling this story, she then addressed her request to the guard, "Give me a knife." The German too guessed her intention, and a devilish smile flickered on his lips. Doubtless he had seen the bodies of those who out of desperation threw themselves during the night on the electrified fence that surrounded the camp. But this would be a novel sight for him. Still smiling, he reached into his pocket and handed her a small knife. Taking the knife, she hurried back to her workstation and bent over a small bundle of rags that she had placed on a log. Quickly unraveling the bundle, she took out a tiny infant. Before our astonished eyes, she swiftly and skillfully circumcised the week-old boy. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, she recited in a clear voice. Asher kiddishanu zosav v'tzivanu lachniso bevriso shal Avram Avinu. Cradling the child in her arms, she soothed his cries. Then she addressed the heavens. "Master of the universe, 8 days ago you gave me a child. I know that neither I nor he will long survive in this accursed place. But now when you take him back, you will take him as a complete Jew. Your knife," she said, handing the holy object back to the German. "Thank you." And who knows how many other stories? Who knows how many other Yaakov Yisraels? Who knows how many other beautiful children whose names, as I've mentioned before, we have long forgotten, but whose parents, Mesiras Nefesh, inspires us to this very day. We'll continue now in the Kinnos, skipping a little bit. We continue now with Kinnos Lamed Aleph. In the packet, it's in this Kinnos section. It's page 304 in the art scroll Kinnos. This is the Kinnos of B'tzeisim Mitzrayim, B'tzeisim Yerushalayim. Just a word about this Kinnos. The incredible impact of it is that it represents almost like the two states of Klal Yisrael. Amazingly enough, often it feels that we exist in extremes. We either live B'tzeisim Mitzrayim, when we left Egypt, salvation, geula, or B'tzeisim Yerushalayim, destruction, havoc, tragedy, uncertainty. We are a people of extremes, and our national circumstances are always of extremes as well. They're either moments of intense happiness, pride, and salvation, moments of incredible destruction, difficulty, and sadness. And that's even from moment to moment. One moment, Klal Yisrael, we feel unbridled simcha. The next, we're plunged into the depths of despair, uncertainty, and sadness. They say that the Blush of Rebbe Zecher Tzadik would save a piece of his afikomen and would consume it at the Suda Hamafsakes, the meal before Tisha B'Av. The afikomen, which represents the bread of freedom, the bread of salvation, the bread of geula. He would save just a little bit to be consumed right before the sadness, the despair, the heartbreak of Tisha B'Av. B'tzeisim Mitzrayim, B'tzeisim Yerushalayim. It's been too many years of B'tzeisim Yerushalayim. May we be zochen me'as Hashem to see the geula of B'tzeisi Mitzrayim. Kinnos Lamed Aleph. H to kan bekirvi balos yalidi B'tzeisi Mitzrayim. Kine ma'ira lamanas kiro B'tzeisi Yerushalayim. Az Yasher Moshe Shir Lo Yinashav B'tzeisi Mitzrayim. forgot about that. It's page 304. Forgot about that, I'm sorry. Mitzrayim Kinoira L'man Azkira Ne'etzer Isi Yerushalayim Shema Asher Lo Yena Asher Me'etzer Isi Heisi Yerushalayim Hachagim Shabbos U'Moisim V'Yosais V'Yetzesi Mitzrayim Tanis V'Yevel Urdaf Ha'amal V'Tzeisi Yerushalayim Hainavalim Li'arbad Digalim Metzeisi Itzeisi Yerushalayim Kavelush Meita V'Yeretz Shokeita V'Yetzeisi Mitzrayim Ay Machar Letzmi Isos V'Karos V'Chasos V'Yetzeisi Miroshalayim K'Vayrez V'Yara V'Yavnei Ziyaron V'Yetzeisi Mitzrayim V'Yavnei Ayah L'Ravot Le'Yavana V'Yetzeisi Mirushalayim V'Vim V'Haroinim V'Shevim Zekainim V'Tzeisi Mitzrayim V'Hainayim Shemu'ayim V'Mo'echlim V'Kainim V'Tzeisi Mirushalayim Moshe Yireinu Me'aron Yaleinu V'Tzeisi Mitzrayim Nebuchadnezzar V'Lion Iskeisa V'Tzeisi Mirushalayim Baruch Milchama Mi'anor Shama V'Tzeisi Mitzrayim Rachok Mimenu Mi'neinenu V'Tzeisi Mirushalayim Sisrei Mitzrayim Continue a little bit. It's amazing that we don't have too much more time together before we have Dan Mincha. It's amazing. You think to yourself, a whole morning should be more than enough to cover the tragedies of Klal Yisrael. But alas, we see it's not. You know, people ask me often with the Kinnos why we put such an emphasis on the Holocaust. Holocaust is not the only tragedy of Klal Yisrael. The fall of the Beis HaMikdash, we often think about the Churban itself just as being a destruction of a structure. 1.5 million Jews were butchered with the fall of Yerushalayim. The first crusade, the second crusade, the pogroms. But the truth is, I feel a particular urgency when it comes to the Holocaust, because the last of the survivors are dying. The first-hand accounts. And when we went to Maidanek, you could still see a fully functional concentration camp. You could see, and it's hard to understand, but you could see the ovens, and you could see the gas chambers, and you could see the tables where they would lay out the body to try to find gold teeth and other valuable items hidden on a person. And if you think that after you go to Maidanek, that's enough, you see the ovens to stand, I can't even begin to comprehend. I saw it with my own eyes. My eyes saw it, but my brain can't process it. Putting human beings into an oven. So it happened to our grandparents and our great-grandparents. Then you walk out, we were there on a beautiful day. You walk out into the sun. 2 mass graves meet you on the hill below. And then perched on the top of the hill is a big dome. That dome houses tons of ashes. Ashes that were recovered from the crematorium after the Nazis were defeated and the camp was liberated. The ashes of men, women, and children still sit there in this place. And there are people who engage in historical revisionism and try to say it wasn't as bad as we make it out to be. And worse. We live in a time now where people throw all kinds of words around. They call detention centers concentration camps. They call leaders they don't like Hitler. And I'm not getting political. I'm not weighing in on the immigration controversy. No matter how bad it may be or it's not a concentration camp. And that people could use those words so flippantly highlights a dramatic ignorance, a dramatic stupidity and an indifference to the suffering of our people. We can't prevent stupidity and ignorance in the general world. But we have an obligation to make sure that we don't forget what has happened, not 1,000 years ago, but less than 100 years ago. I don't expect that too many of us will shed a tear over the Beis HaMikdash, or will shed a tear over the victims of the Chmielnicki pogroms, or will shed a tear over those who were murdered in the name of Yashka during the First Crusade. But we can shed tears over our grandparents, our great-grandparents, extended mishpachos, who are no longer. And so in the last piece that we're going to do together this afternoon, when we went to Auschwitz, and I mentioned before, I was actually on this trip with my mother and my in-laws were there. And my grandmother was in Auschwitz. So much of our family perished there. And we saw the barracks. And you read the stories of the barracks. But you know, as the statement goes, "Ein adome shmiya kiriya." You could hear, and you could even see pictures. But at the end of the day, to see with your own eyes, it's not even a barrack. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. It's not even a place that's fit for animals, let alone for human beings. And it was there that I first heard the story of a woman by the name of Dr. Gisela Pearl. Dr. Pearl was a Hungarian woman, an OBGYN before the war. And she was in Auschwitz. She lost much of her family, including her husband and her son. She did not know that till the end of the war. But she wrote a book called I Was a Doctor in Auschwitz. It's an incredible book. It's not an easy book to read. It's graphic and overwhelming. It's a short book. You can read it in a couple of hours, and in it she describes her life in Auschwitz, not simply as a Jew, and not simply as a woman, but as a doctor. You see, when she got to Auschwitz, they made an announcement in the camps. And in that announcement, Dr. Mengele Yimach Shemo V'Zichro asked the pregnant women to come forward because they would be given a more comfortable place. They'd be given extra rations, they'd be taken care of. It quickly became clear that Dr. Mengele Yimach Shemo V'Zichro was experimenting on them. All kinds of unspeakable experimentations. Dr. Pearl heard about this, and from that day forward, she made it her sacred task to take care of all the pregnant women herself. She would not let any of them fall into the clutches of the Nazis. Yimach Shemo V'Zichron. Dear friends, you have to ask yourself, what does it mean to take care of a pregnant woman in Auschwitz? Barely any running water, barely enough food, barely enough to take, not barely, there wasn't enough to take care of those who were living and healthy, let alone a woman who was carrying another life. To compound this, the satanic Dr. Mengele often changed the policies regarding pregnant women. Sometimes pregnant women, he said, would be taken care of. Sometimes being pregnant was punishable by death. Who knew ma yavo yom? Who knew what the day would bring? So I read this book just a few weeks ago, and I pulled out a couple of excerpts from it, just to give you a little bit of an idea, a little bit of a window. If you turn to page 20 in your packet, we'll get through as much as we can. Dr. Pearl describes many different things. She describes hunger. You know, a lot of times we say we're hungry. A lot of times we say we're hungry. Or a lot of times, I was telling my children this, we say that there's nothing to eat. And what nothing to eat actually means is there's nothing that catches my fancy right now. But she describes what it means to be hungry. To receive a ration a day of some type of turnip soup that was carried in pots that the previous night was used as bedpans in the barracks. So that's what you ate your soup out of. But yet, when that soup came out, life-saving, like it was the nectar of the gods, like there was nothing more delectable, because that was the only thing you had to survive. She describes in number 6, when she first came to Auschwitz. Then we arrived. We strained our tired, weakened eyes to read the name of the station, Auschwitz. When the SS guards unsealed the door of our car and ordered us to get out, I ran to my parents, embraced them, and begged them to forgive me if I had ever caused them any heartaches. You were always the best child any parents could have, they comforted me. My sisters and brothers embraced me silently. My husband drew me close. Take care of yourself, he whispered.
take care of your warm, generous heart. My son just looked at me with his big blue eyes. Mother, they said. Mother. This was the last time Dr. Pearl saw her family. Her husband and son and parents were almost immediately sent to the crematorium. She didn't know this until some time after liberation. But I saw this passage. I thought to myself, I called my parents before Yom Kippur, for Rosh Hashanah, and asked them for mechila. And I see these words. I apologize for any difficulty and sadness and heartache that I've caused them. And they almost always say the same words to me. You are wonderful, you never did anything. I'm often tempted to remind them of some of the things that I did, but I choose not to. You know how incredible it is that in that moment she perceived that this was the end of the road for those relationships. I often think that so many times in life there are relationships that are strained. There are times where many of us do owe apologies to our parents. We do. For things that we have done that have upset them, for things that we have done that have caused them much pain. And there are a lot of times as parents we owe apologies to our children for burdening them with things that they should not be burdened with, for sometimes making unrealistic or inappropriate demands of them. And how many times does a husband forget to say, I love you to his wife? And how many times does a wife forget to express her appreciation for all her husband is doing? And how many times do we run out of the house without taking a moment to say goodbye to our children? Without taking a moment to look into their precious, innocent eyes and say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how privileged and lucky we are that our children are safe, that our children are secure, that our children are hopefully healthy. And only later on did she realize that the last time she looked into her little boy's eyes, that was the last time she would ever see her precious son. There's an incredible insight. Rashi HaKadosh notes the juxtaposition between the death of Sarah Imenu and the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. We're familiar with Rashi quotes the Medrash that says, but we often misunderstand the Medrash. We often think that the story is that Sarah heard that Yitzchak was slaughtered by Avram, and she was in so much pain that she just couldn't take it anymore, and her soul left her body. But in fact, if you look at the Medrash, that's not what the Medrash says. The Medrash says that Sarah heard Kim'at Shelo Nishchata. She heard that Yitzchak was almost slaughtered. Almost slaughtered. In other words, Sarah knew that Yitzchak was alive. She knew that he was alive. And yet she still died. And the Maharal of Prague, the Gur Aryeh, says, I don't understand. If she knew that he was alive, isn't that cause for celebration? Isn't that cause for a bracha? Isn't that cause for rejoicing? The Maharal says something absolutely amazing. He says, in that moment when Sarah saw, or Sarah understood, how close Yitzchak was to death, she recognized the fragility of life. She recognized that in any given moment, life could change, circumstances could change, and my beloved child may be no longer. And so she realized that every single time little Yitzchak would leave the house, she would be preoccupied, consumed with fear. Will he come home? She could not live with that anxiety. And so she died. But is that anxiety not part of the very fabric of life? No parent ever wants to think that when you say goodbye to your child in the morning, it's the last time you're going to see them. Can't think that way, it's horrible. But there's a part of me that has to think that way. Because if I allow myself to think that just for a moment, then I'll take the extra few moments to say goodbye properly. Take the few moments, not just to say a flippant goodbye, but to tell my child, I love you. I'm proud of you. You mean so much to me. Because I don't know what the coming day brings. But the one thing I can do is, as my child leaves the house and goes into the great unknown world, they should just know how I feel about them. They should just know how I feel about them. Every child should always know how much their parent loves them and how much their parent cares about them. And even if they're not successful in all of the ways in which we would like them to be successful, my child, you have my love, you have my heart, and forever that will be yours. When you read the stories of survivors, so much of the tragic undertone and underpinning is about the things that they wanted to say that they never said because they didn't know. How was Dr. Pearl to know that this was the last time she would see her little boy? And had she known, perhaps she would have said something additional. If you skip a little bit, I'll share with you something amazing in number 10. She writes about an amazing thing. And this, I think, as we kind of begin to close out the Kinnos this morning, this afternoon already. What time is Mincha? 1:50. As we begin to close out the Kinnos now, as I mentioned before, Tisha B'Av is a progression. You could already sit on a chair if you want to. It's past Chatzos. It's past midday. And the day shifts. We go from mourning, we go from heartbreak, and now we transition into growth mode. What do we do to grow from our grief? What do we do to become better, to become holier, to become stronger? And I want to show you something amazing. If you take a look at number 10, Dr. Pearl writes, that same evening after retiring to our bunks, thank you, I began talking in a low voice to the women lying close to me. I told them about my old life in Mamarosh Siget, about my work, my husband, my son, the things we used to do, the books we used to read, the music we used to listen to. To my surprise, they listened with rapt attention, which proved that their souls, their minds were just as hungry for conversation, for companionship, for self-expression as mine. One after the other, they opened up their hearts. And from then on, half our nights were spent in conversation. Later, as we came to know one another better, we invented games to keep our minds off the sordid present. We recited poetry, told stories of the books we had read and liked, and sang songs in a low voice with tears in our eyes, careful that the Blakova shouldn't hear us. Other evenings we played another game, which spread from block to block until every woman in Auschwitz played it enthusiastically. We called the game, I Am a Lady. I am a lady, I said one night, a lady doctor in Hungary. It is morning, a beautiful sunny morning, and I feel too lazy to work. I ring for my assistant and tell her to send the patients away, for I am not going to my office today. What should I do with myself? Go shopping, go to the hairdresser, meet my friends at the cafe. Maybe I'll do some shopping. I haven't had a new dress, a new hat in weeks. And I went shopping and lunching and walking, went to the theater with my husband and son, had supper afterwards, and my fellow prisoners hung on to my every word, following me around that little town they had never seen. And when my happy, lovely day was over, they fell asleep with a smile on their faces. These evenings acted like a stimulant. They reminded us that although the odds were all against us, it was still our duty to fight. We had no longer homes to defend. All we had was our human dignity, which was our home, our pride, our only possession, and the moral strength to defend it with. I am a lady. And with this, Dr. Pearl teaches us such an incredible lesson. It's the power of optimism, the power of hope. We spent an entire morning last night crying, lamenting, reciting Kinnos, focusing on all that has been lost. But the power of the Jew is the ability to imagine a beautiful and magnificent future. In my mind's eye, I see what life can be, what life will be. In my mind's eye, I see that as difficult as things may be right now, the future is bright, the future is beautiful. The future is filled with so much simcha. It's a little bit like what we spoke about yesterday in Shul. The great tzaddik Rabbi Yitzchak Berdichev says that the power of Shabbos Chazon is not like we normally think, to see a vision of destruction. But it's the Shabbos when we have vision to see the third Beis Hamikdash, to see the Geula, to see all that which is beautiful waiting for us. So as we close out our Kinnos this morning, and we get ready to stand up to sing Eli Tzion, let us hope that in the merit of the tears that we have shed, let us hope that in the merit of the pain that we have felt, let us hope that in the merit of seeing who we are, because this morning is a Kiddush Hashem. Here we are, thousands of years later, after the Churban Habayis. We're still here. We're still strong. It's almost 1:40 in the afternoon. And we still shed tears for the generations of the past. We are still here, still mourning, still lamenting. But now we take that grief, we take that sadness, and we use it as a catalyst to build. Our people have lost much in generations past. But if we are here, we have a sacred mission to rebuild. My dear friends, I shared with you these stories, not simply to make you sad or to allow you to feel the pain of the past, but to give us a renewed sense of mission. We each have a mission to make up for those who are no longer here. The world has been deprived from so much of Klal Yisrael's light because of the millions which have been lost. We have an obligation to make up for that light. And we have the ability to do so. We are stronger than we could ever imagine. We are more resilient than we could ever imagine. And our avoda on Tisha B'Av is now, from Chatzosin on, from Mincha and on, to figure out, what am I going to do to make a difference? What am I going to do to infuse more light? What am I going to do to create more Kiddusha? There is so much heartbreak, so much pain, and so much sadness. What is my avoda? And partnering with HaKadosh Baruch Hu to make the world just a little bit better. And if we are matzliach, if we are successful in that task, which I have no doubt we will be zocha to give an aliyah to the millions of neshamas for whom we mourn today. Please rise and we'll sing together Elitzio. It's page 390 in the packet and in the art scroll Kinnos. Elitzio v'areha kimo isha mitzireha v'chib sulach haguhor asak al ba'al ne'oreha alei amon asher nutash v'yashmason adahareha v'al bias mecharfeyer v'sok miknash chadareha Elitzion ve'areha kimo isha b'tzireha v'chib sulach haguhor asak al ba'al ne'oreha alai galos mishar seyel mani meishir zimareha v'al damam asher shupach kimo memei yoreha Elitzion v'areha isha b'tzireha v'chib sulach haguhor asak al ba'al ne'oreha alei hegyon micholeha asher damam mihareha v'al vad asher shamein uvitul sanhedreha Elitzion v'areha kimo isha mitzireha v'chib sulach haguhor asak al ba'al ne'oreha alei zivchei semideha ufiyonei bechoreha v'al chilul kelei heichal umizbach ketoreha Elitzion v'areha kimo isha b'tzireha v'chib sulach haguhor asak al ba'al ne'oreha alei tapei melacheha b'nei David givhireha v'al yafyam asher chashach b'ei so'ur kisareha Elitzion v'areha kimo isha b'tzireha v'chib sulach haguhor asak al ba'al ne'oreha alei chavod asher gala v'eis churban d'vhireha v'al ochet asher lachatz v'sham sakim chagoreha Elitzion v'areha kimo isha b'tzireha sulach haguhor asak al ba'al ne'oreha alei machatz v'rov makos asher hukon nezireha v'al nipot alei selah ola leha une'areha Eli Tzion v'yareha, Kimo isha b'tzireha, V'chipsu la chagur asak, Al ba'al ne'oreha, Alei simchas Sachako al shivareha, V'al inui b'nei chorin, Nediveha te'oreha, Eli Tzion v'yareha, Kimo isha b'tzireha, V'chipsu la chagur asak, Al ba'al ne'oreha, Alei pesha asher ibsa, Silul derech ashureha, V'al tzivos kehaleha, Shezufeha shechoreha, Eli Tzion v'yareha, Kimo isha b'tzireha, V'chipsu la chagur asak, Al ba'al ne'oreha, Alei kalos mecharfeha, V'yisrabo v'gareha, V'yal rigshas megatfeha, B'soch mishkan chatzereha, Eli Tzion v'yareha, Kimo isha b'tzireha, V'chipsu la chagur asak, Al ba'al ne'oreha, Alei shimcha asher chulal, B'fi kamei mitzireha, V'al tachan yitzav chulal, Kishav u'shema amareha, Eli Tzion v'yareha, Kimo isha b'tzireha, V'chipsu la chagur asak, Al ba'al Ani mahamin be'emuna sheleima be'vi'asa Mashiach Ani mahamin Ani mahamin be'emuna sheleima be'vi'asa Mashiach Ani mahamin ve'avi'afalti she'is ma've'yai chaze'achak Eloi b'chayim she'yavai ve'avi'afalti she'is ma've'yai chaze'achak Eloi b'chayim Mincha will begin in just a few moments.